All right, we continue with our focus on the swearing in of the United States of America's 47th President Donald Trump. We're joined now from New York by SABC News correspondent Sherwin Bryce-Pease. Sherwin, quite a moment this is, starting with the return to tradition of the outgoing president hosting the incoming president. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, just moments away, Mfundo, from the arrival of President-elect Donald Trump. You correctly point out that J.D. Vance, the Vice President-elect, is now in the rotunda. We see various dignitaries, including the outgoing President Joe Biden arriving, Dr. Jill Biden, the former presidents George W. Bush and the former First Lady Laura Bush, former President Bill Clinton and former First Lady and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in attendance, Barack Obama, the former president, also in attendance, without the former First Lady Michelle Obama, who is not there. And so what we have seen all of this morning, right, as we sort of move towards, listening to what Donald Trump will say after his swearing in, how he will lay out his agenda, the important takeaway so far is that we've seen a broad return to tradition here. You saw the Bidens host the incoming presidential couple at the White House, a courtesy that was not afforded them when Donald Trump lost the election to Joe Biden 4 years ago. He left Washington, D.C. without attending the inauguration that all these former presidents are now attending today as a reaffirmation of what the peaceful transfer of power looks like. Also, don't let this escape you, right? The venue for this inauguration of the 47th president of the United States is the venue that he sent his supporters to attack in 2021, January 6, 2021, after not conceding the election while the United States Congress was certifying the election victory of Joe Biden in 2021. So let the symbolism not be lost here. You're seeing a return to tradition. One of the core tenets of American democracy is the peaceful transfer of power, and the Bidens have certainly stepped out in that vein to undercut what Trump did to them some 4 years ago, as we now, of course, await the swearing-in ceremony at the rotunda of Donald Trump. And then, of course, he will lay out his agenda, where we are going to get a better idea, Mfundo, of what exactly he is going to do within the first 100 days. We are told that there will be some 100 executive orders signed within hours of this inauguration that will really give us a pathway to where we go in terms of the next 4 years under the incumbency of Donald Trump.
That flurry of executive orders we keep hearing of, certainly probably going to surpass any other president. But if we had to look beyond the rotunda, how is the mood on such a day when the media space is littered with articles of some sort of anxiety among some who say it could be a turbulent 4 years? What exactly is the mood in America?
This is a very divided country, and don't let Donald Trump's sweeping victory in terms of his electoral college and popular vote victory in November fool you of anything different. The United States Congress, as much as Republicans control both the House and the Senate, they have very slim majorities. Donald Trump won 77 million votes. Kamala Harris won 75 million votes. So there's a 2.3 million deficit there that really speaks to a continued division within this country, despite what the numbers are telling us. And so Donald Trump has an opportunity here to be a unifying force, but history shows us that he is a very divisive character. He has been given a mandate. He certainly believes he's been given an overwhelming mandate to really come forward and put his thumb on the scale within a very short period of time. He was a novice in 2016 after beating Hillary Clinton, I think to the surprise of everybody around the world, including himself. But he now has that experience that undergirds how he's approaching this. You saw very early on he had nominated various cabinet secretaries that are going through the confirmation process right now. He has all these executive orders ready to go. And so that really speaks to some of the fights perhaps that Democrats as a minority are going to have to do, are going to have to show up for in the years ahead. But let's not take away from what a joyous moment this is if you're a Trump supporter. Republicans en masse have descended on Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, the weather is not playing, playing its part. But certainly some 20,000 plus people will be in what's called the Capital One Arena, where they will watch this proceeding unfold in the Capitol Rotunda on big screens there. But you're not going to see the thousands of people, the hundreds of thousands of people that were expected to populate the National Mall. But that doesn't take away from the fact that there's been a long wait for Trump supporters. They believe that Trump, was unfairly treated in his first term. They believe he won the 2020 election, despite not a single court in the United States upholding that argument. And so this will be a very joyous occasion for them. But the campaign now is over, and governing is a very different persuasion to what it is to say, I'm going to do this in a campaign, or I'm going to do that in a campaign. He might sign all these executive orders today, but there might be various legal challenges to the authority that he's seeking to impose through those executive orders. Sometimes the purview is through congressional legislation. Congress, for example, has the power of the purse. To what extent can Donald Trump insert himself through executive orders in where we go here? And so there's still a lot of chaos that needs to play itself out in terms of where we go from here.
Now, Sherwin, we understand there's heavy police presence there, given the 2 assassination attempts. Is this in fact the case? Because some are even going as far as saying perhaps the decision of this specific location was also informed by the security risk.
I'll say this. I don't think it was a security concern. Let's take the Trump transition team at its word. They have said they moved this indoors because the weather is frigid. The low temperature in Washington, D.C. this morning is minus 11 degrees Celsius. It's only expected to go up to about minus 5 degrees Celsius. So if you're standing outside in this kind of weather for hours, waiting, having to go through multiple layers of security to then get to the National Mall, I think that is essentially what is going on here. And of course, this is the first time they've moved the ceremony indoors since the second inauguration of Ronald Reagan in 1985. So a 40-year gap since this has happened. Look, there's a lot of security out in D.C. today. There is a multitude of National Guard. The D.C. Metro Police have gotten reinforcements in. You have the FBI on the ground. And remember, it's not just Donald Trump as president-elect. You have the incumbent president, Joe Biden, there, multiple other presidents, speakers of the House, and so forth. So the layout in terms of security is quite vast, and I don't think an assassin would be able to get close. But that's just my speculation.
And then talk us through the ceremony now, what we're seeing now and what we should expect building up to that all-important moment when he's sworn in.
So you will have perhaps, the national anthem being sung. We understand that there might be a poet laureate that will speak. Then the Vice President, J.D. Vance, will be sworn in by Associate Justice Brett Kavanaugh. And soon after that, President-elect Donald Trump will be sworn in. His wife is likely to stand alongside him holding a Bible. He'll place his right hand or left hand on that Bible and be sworn in by the Chief Justice, John Roberts. Soon after that, he will then have the podium where he will lay out his agenda. And I'm told that the President will be laying out exactly his a pathway in terms of how we will be moving forward on some of the key issues within that campaign, including border security, immigration, cutting regulations. We're told that he is going to undercut regulations in regard to the environment, with regard to electric vehicles, in regard to tariff impositions around the world. So there is a plethora of executive orders that we're looking forward to in that speech. They will then conclude the ceremony. They will go behind closed doors. There will be a presidential luncheon with members of Congress. We understand that there will be a presidential parade at some point. And then later on, there are inaugural balls where the first couple is expected to show up. So proceedings will go on throughout the day, quite late into the night. President Biden and First Lady Dr. Jill Biden will exit the congressional precinct within the hour, and you will see them aboard Air Force One for the last time, and that airplane will take them to California, where we're told they will first go on vacation. So he's not going home to his home state of Delaware. He's flying to California on vacation, and of course, certainly a momentous moment for Kamala Harris, right, who stepped into the bridge and ran for president under trying circumstances, coming close, but at the end not making it across the finishing line. Let's spare a thought for Kamala Harris, who will be leaving the White House today as the outgoing Vice President, Mfundo.
Most certainly, that on its own, a great feat on her part, Kamala Harris. But then we just saw the camera also zooming in. There we have it. We have President-elect and Deputy President-elect J.D. Vance there. Fairly young man. What is the sentiment in America on just the personal profile of J.D. Vance at this point?
Well, J.D. Vance was a young senator from Ohio who essentially has had to relinquish that seat to become the vice president-elect of the United States, surprisingly tapped by Donald Trump. There were other names in the fray, but we understand that Donald Trump Jr. and the other son, Eric Trump, were his biggest advocates. He's a young MAGA enthusiast. He was first a vehement critic of President Trump. He compared the incoming president to Adolf Hitler, but that we've certainly seen a sea change. So he's a young person who is waiting in the wings, right? Donald Trump will take the oath of office for the last time. This will be his final term. That's the two-term limit here. And so J.D. Vance, I think, in prime position to follow in Donald Trump's footsteps. But that, of course, will all depend on whether policies are implemented, whether Americans feel that after 4 years, the Republican this Republican duo has had a positive impact. How's the economy going to be doing in 3.5 years from now when we're running for re-election? All those little issues matter. What sort of geopolitical concerns, be they old ones or new ones, will emerge in this term? We're very far away from where J.D. Vance goes from here in the absence of Donald Trump being on the political scene. But the other question is, who will run against J.D. Vance? What are Democrats going to produce over the next 3 years? Remember, in 2 years' time, you have congressional elections where the power dynamics in Washington could again change. Could Democrats reassume the speakership of the House? Could they retake the Senate? How would that then impact where we go in terms of J.D. Vance's future or an as yet unknown Democrat? So certainly lots to play for on the political world, but so much at play in terms of geopolitics that can have an impact domestically, Mfundo.
Indeed, quite a lot at play. Sherwin, as always, thank you very much for that reportage. That's SABC News correspondent Sherwin Bryce-Pease in New York for us.